and why these seem to be shifting and how?
So if you think about the way that the United States has operated in our lifetimes, but even before that, right after World War II, there's a real problem because in the 20th century, there had been two world wars. And the First World War especially, but certainly the second as well, came about because of alliances that had been formed in or around the time of war that made people come to support each other in times of war. And that led to millions of people dying, the devastation of entire societies. And it happened twice in one generation. So after that war, what countries who had fought among the Allies in World War II did was they began to create a world that was tied together by peacetime alliances. Not that we're going to run after each other and help each other just in war, but that we're going to have alliances in peacetime. We're going to find ways to work together through allegiances like the United Nations, which is literally made of the same countries plus four others that were the allies, signed the treaty to be allies together in World War II. We're going to create a place where countries that have issues with each other can come in and can work it out without having to go to war. And fundamental to that is going to be the idea that big countries are not going to take over smaller countries. You're not going to have, another case of an authoritarian like Adolf Hitler just saying, well, this country is mine and I'm going to take it over. We're going to get rid of that. Now, those alliances, which included things like the United Nations and NATO, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, have been instrumental in trying to make sure, not in just in trying to make sure, but in making sure that we did not have world wars. Because what NATO really does is it says all of us countries that are part of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization will come to the rescue of any of the others if anybody is attacked. And of course, the big dog in that fight was the United States. This has been under attack largely, again, by people like Vladimir Putin, who was trying to get away from the idea that he couldn't take over smaller countries. So the invasion first of Georgia and then of Ukraine in 2014, and then Ukraine again in 2022, was really a way to say, we don't care about your NATO and we don't care about your rules. We're going to take over Crimea and it's going to be ours. And later on, we're going to take some of these other oblasts in Ukraine. And the big thing about the Biden administration was it tried to reinforce those norms, but also expand them. And as you know, the Biden administration brought two more countries into NATO, but it also brought in the African Union into the G20, for example. It tried to include new voices in that web. I think of it as like a web that holds down the rocks on a hillside so it doesn't slide.
Mm-hmm.
The administration has abandoned that, and now Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth today said that the U.S. is no longer going to be a guarantor of other countries' security, and that Europe is on its own, and that it's walking away from that idea that, for example, smaller countries don't have to worry about larger countries because of these international agreements that'll make sure that big countries can't just take over smaller countries. That's a really big deal. That is a really big deal, because what that says is that we're going to develop a multipolar world, which is what a number of theorists have called for, in which basically smaller countries have to, suck up to bigger countries so that they have some protection. And that's been the world that Vladimir Putin wanted, that Xi Jinping thought that would be good for China, and now apparently that America thinks it's going to live with as well. That is the same kind of world we had before World War II. And the reason that people like me are so concerned about it is because it is a recipe for big conflicts among big powers. And it looks like that's the direction we're going to be going now.